Hello and welcome to what could very well be the finale of Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney. It has been one hell of a ride up until this point, with a lot of twists and turns, some for the better, some for the worse, but no matter what, I have a feeling that this is going to be the final episode, so this is the last chance for the game to tie up any loose ends, and hopefully, it'll end in a logical conclusion so that this doesn't become another Professor Layton nightmare. But I guess it's time to find out, so let's continue the story. Mr. Cantabella, I would like to apologize for putting too much pressure on your daughter. Only your words can bring her back from the brink of madness. Let her hear the truth from her own father. All according to your plan, Layton, you've driven Espella into a corner in order to push me to the wall. I had no other choice. Espella, please listen to me. You haven't done anything wrong. You didn't cause that accident. You have suffered so much thinking that you were Brazella. Oh, by the way, we learned that the way that the fire got started was that the bell, either Espella or Darklaw, probably Darklaw, rang the bell because they were the only two people up there, so they rang the bell. Guessing it was Darklaw, and that caused everyone to be knocked unconscious, which then, that didn't cause it to happen, but apparently the fires just so happened to spiral out of control. And then, because everyone was unconscious, no one did anything about it. So, yep, that's the solution to the fire mystery. In case you were wondering. I must take the blame for that. You, Mr. Cantabella. I sacrificed everything to make up for what I've done, but all I managed to do was inflict more pain upon others. Is that not so, Darklaw? Now that you are willing to talk, Mr. Cantabella, would you mind telling us your story? Yours as well as Espella's and Miss Darklaw's. Very well. Oh, and in case you're wondering why Layton's the one doing all the talking and not Phoenix, well, I think it's because this game forgot that Phoenix Wright is also in this game. This story too began when I was a young lad, when Newton and I were still youths full of dreams and hope. As you already know, we discovered the underground ruins, and deep within them lay that accursed bell. The Bell of Ruin. At the time, we still lacked the knowledge to decipher any of the writings we found there. Which, by the way, if this bell is so dangerous, why wouldn't you just destroy it outright? Why would you hide it underground in the, why would you even risk the possibility of somebody else finding it? Anyway. Oh, and then these two apparently came up with the idea to make it the symbol of the town. Great. That's not a bad idea. Let's settle it. When we grow up, let's do it. Okay, just don't forget about it. Yeah, destroying that would have solved a lot of problems. The two of us chose different paths in life. I studied management in London, and then you made a fortune following the invention of a new anesthetic. We both got married around that time, and each of us had a daughter. You mean Espella was born shortly after your company gained funding? That's right. We eventually returned to our hometown and set about realizing our childhood dream. Having built the bell tower in the middle of the town square, we retrieved the bell itself from the underground ruins. We aspired to, I don't know how you got it out of there, but alright. We aspired to make it a symbol of prosperity for this unindustrialized town. The bell was to be officially displayed during the annual fire festival. It would be rung in the morning, following the night of celebration. Pardon the interruption, but at the time, were you aware of the meaning behind the bell's name? Obviously we were not. Thinking back to my ignorance at the time, a chill now runs down my spine. Newton and I went to the bell tower the day before the festival. Only one more day to go. We've waited a long time for this. That we have. This town will no longer be the same after tomorrow. The bell weighed so much that the ringing it was not easy. We tackled that problem by constructing a special mechanism which we installed in the belfry.
Daddy, I want to hear the bell. Can I make it ring? Daddy, please, let me ring it.
Getting some sister location vibes here.
Oh, Daddy, let me go to her. She's so pretty and shiny. Didn't you make her just for me?
Espella, who was there with us, was utterly enchanted by the bell. She wasn't a bad child, but she was very stubborn and would rarely listen to me when she wanted something. I told her a story to try and convince her to leave the bell alone.
Espella, listen carefully. You mustn't ring this bell.
But why? Why can't I, Daddy?
You know about Brazella, the witch.
Uh-huh. She's an evil fire witch who uses magic to hurt people.
If you ring this bell, Brazella will come out and possess you.
Possess me? You mean I'll turn into Brazella?
That's right, Espella. When Brazella possesses someone, she uses them to do terrible things. That's why you must never ring this bell, sweetheart.
I understand, Daddy.
There's a good girl.
The legend of Bezella has been passed around these parts for centuries. It probably originated from beliefs of the tribes that populated this area in the past. What I told Spella was just a silly story that I invented for the occasion. It was only meant to stop her from ringing the bell. I could not have imagined that it would have such far-reaching consequences.
It's all coming back to me now. I remember that day.
Oh, look, there he is. Did you see him there? He was on screen for like half a second.
On the day of the fire festival, just around the time when the preparations ended and everything was about to begin, I sneaked out of our house. I took Mom's pendant with me.
Your mother's pendant? Do you mean this one?
Yes, it belonged to my mom.
We needed to limit access to the bell, so we made the 2 keys. We decided to make them independent and each give one to our respective wives. Both are needed in order to access the belfry.
I saw you and Mr. Belduke use them, so I told Eve to meet me at the bell tower.
Daddy says Bezella will come out if I ring the bell, but if I do it just a little...
What?
I want to try it while the festival is going on.
Why would you ever risk that?
I hope Eve doesn't forget.
Why would you ever risk this?
So this is just as I thought, Miss Darknall. You are Mr. Belduke's daughter.
Well done, Inquisitor. I was almost afraid you would fail to make that connection.
What in the... This is too much for the day.
Why would you ever risk that?
Order in the court, Lady Darknall. You mean to say that you're Sir Belduke's daughter?
Yes, my real name is Eve Belduke. I'm the alchemist's daughter.
This is unbelievable.
I also sneaked out of my house that evening, clutching my mother's pendant in my hand. I did just ask, I did just as you asked me to, did I not, Espella?
Espella, my mum's going to be so angry if she notices I took the pendant. Don't worry so much. I just really want to ring that bell.
You know, I feel like he explicitly warned you about ringing that
I
bell.
want to hear it.
Like, it'd be one thing, you could have fixed this problem, because in The Lion King, when Mufasa says, everything the light touches is our kingdom, and Simba says, well, what about that shadowy place? And then Mufasa says, that's beyond our borders. You must never go there, Simba. You know, you can explain that because it's like, hey, there's an aura of mystery around it. I wonder what's over there. And, you know, there's the rebellious nature of Simba wanting to go explore into the great unknown, and then that's reinforced when Scar's like, when he actually tells him what is in that shadowy place. Here, like, there's an actual legitimate reason that was provided to Espella to never ring the bell, or else everybody will die. But then she's like, you know, what does that matter? Who cares, you know? I mean, everyone dies eventually, right? May as well ring the bell now. What could possibly go wrong? Apart from, you know, everything.
I rang the bell against my father's warning. Like, I'm not even kidding, this could have been fixed by just, well, yeah, you know, this could have been fixed by just having the father say, Espella, never, ever, under any circumstances, ring that bell. And then you're done. You're done. You've patched it. That's just so easy. Because then, Espella's like, ooh, I wonder what's so mysterious about this bell. I shouldn't ring it. And then your problem solved. But when you're given an explicit reason not to do it, that's when you're like, that's when you go from childhood curiosity to idiotic decision making at the expense of everybody. Because of me, the town, and everyone in it.
Now, okay, I should clarify. Still pretty sure she's not the one who actually rang it. It was probably Darklaw. But she's the reason that they went up to that bell tower in the first place. So, supposedly the former inhabitants of this area also used to fall unconscious upon the sound of that bell. Perhaps they experienced a similar nightmare. It was I who brought the Bell of Ruin into this town. The one to blame for this calamity is not some witch, it's me.
I brought destruction upon this town. I am Bezella.
Espella, you're going to drive your dad crazy if you keep repeating that.
Seeing you like this gives me a strong feeling of deja vu.
Eve, how can you be so evil? Are you happy now? I'm afraid we're in the dark as regards Mrs. Darknall's sense of deja vu. Only 4 people survived the fire. Only 4. Espella and Eve, who were in the belfry, and the only 2 residents who did not participate in the festival, Newton and I. And where were you at the time, if you'll permit my asking? We were investigating those fateful ruins. That's why we didn't notice anything until it was too late. It was getting near the time at which we planned to ring the bell, so we headed towards the town. Then we saw it. The town had been burnt to ashes, the air shimmering from the heat.
That's too awful for words!
We searched for survivors, sick with anxiety. Eventually we found our daughters in the bell tower.
Isabella was unresponsive like a doll. Eve was crying at her side. Our relief at having found them vied with terror caused by the disaster. The worst night of my life ended, pierced with the first rays of sunshine. But then, it seemed Isabella was already lost to us. We had lost her to Bezella. She wouldn't speak, eat, or even leave her room. She thought she was Bezella and that she had destroyed the town. I couldn't get that out of her head. What she saw from the bell tower must have been so terrifying, but I wasn't shocked from what she had seen. My own words had put her in that state. Had I only not told her that stupid story. We had been grasping at straws, trying to find a way to save Isabela's mind, but whatever we did, her eyes would remain impassive and empty. In the end, I came upon a certain idea that offered us a glimpse of hope. What was it? This suspense, it's too much for my aging heart. I believe I may know what it was. It was the only way to get through to little Isabella. Let me guess, you wrote her a story? Perhaps the first story? Inquisition, what are you talking about? It was the storybook.
Have a look.
We discovered this in Isabella's room. And that is? It's a handmade picture book. The illustrations and handwriting are truly exquisite. That's the first story I wrote. I made it first build out to that dreadful fire. Oh, the storyteller's first story. It was but a simple children's story. The plot was very straightforward. The townsfolk joined forces to banish evil witches who served Bezella.
Isabella, do you understand now? You aren't Bezella. Bezella is somewhere out there, sending out other witches to do bad things to the people of our town.
Witches, magic, the town perishing in flames. Isabella was mentally broken and I couldn't get through to her any other way. I talked to her as if magic and witches were real, avoiding any mention of that fire.
Daddy. Are witches real?
Isabella spoke to me for the first time in so many days. I was beyond myself with joy and replied without thinking.
Oh, yes, they are.
Daddy!
They're hiding in the town, among the people.
Yeah, that. Can I get a round of applause for the storyteller, ladies and gentlemen? Solid 200 IQ play from the storyteller. Hey, my daughter thinks she's been possessed by a witch, and then she just asked me if witches are real. What should I say? Ooh, me, pick me. I know. So, Isabella, witches are definitely real. Good night. It's like, why would you say that? Why would you say that? Come on now, why would you say that?
But it's just a fairy tale.
I was desperate. I feared she would close herself off to me again. Now in hindsight, I see what an utter fool I was. I made an irreversible mistake yet again.
No, it's not. Everything your daddy writes comes true. The bad witches will get their comeuppance. I will write a story about it.
So, once again, 200 IQ plays from the storyteller. And so I wrote another story for my daughter, a story about mischievous witches getting caught. This time I had the story acted out in front of Isabella. You had it acted out? Back then I wasn't the only one tormenting myself over the mental state of my daughter. Newton was going through hell too. His own daughter had been badly scarred by the event. Isn't that right, Eve?
My father and I repaired a building that had survived the fire and continued to live in this town. Isabella wasn't even able to leave her room. We couldn't leave her behind when she needed all the help she could get. Mr. Cantabella showed us this book one day. Then he made an unusual request of us.
I'd like to make this story real. Would you be willing to help me do so?
To our surprise, or maybe this is Dark Law, to our surprise he was entirely serious. Seeing that, we gladly offered our help. A story about evil-doing witches getting caught and punished, and Bezella, the source of them all.
Were you paying attention, Isabella? Witches got what they deserved, and peace has been restored to the town.
Isabella smiled at the end, then she whispered to herself.
It wasn't me.
When I saw her smile, I felt as if something broke inside me. I couldn't afford to let her be sad again. Maybe if Bezella were to exist in this town, Isabella would stop thinking she herself harbored the Great Witch. I I continued writing stories about witches. Even I would act them out for Spella. And gradually, the number of characters in my stories increased. That was, of course, largely due to the ongoing reconstruction of the town. How much reconstruction? It wasn't anything on a big scale. I simply paid people to move in and act out their roles. But I began to think that I would need more than that. The story had to be real. To make a lie seem true, you resorted to even more lies. Yes, I was certain that was the only way. How did I do so? I remembered about Newton's research. He was working on a certain medicine. It was a kind of tranquilizer, made from local plants that he was testing at the time, but it was difficult to put into practical use. The substance had a danger of causing unconsciousness and hypnosis. I could see how that could be abused to cause much harm, supposing it fell into the wrong hands. At the same time, it was just what I needed for my ambitious project. I contacted the government, and that was the beginning of what came to be known as Project Labyrinthia, a town with human test subjects all in a state of long-term hypnosis. You devised that plan solely for the sake of your daughter? Yes. We acquired the land which had been laid to waste by the fire. The new town was slowly becoming populated. Gradually, the rules of Labyrinthia were established. It was to be a town where magic and witches were a reality to the residents. All of this was possible thanks to the drug. The test subjects were exposed to it through the ink used to pen the story, right? That's right. It was the dangerous drug developed by Newton. About 10 years have passed since then. Even now, the town continues to change. Okay. Let's take a second to pause and talk about that. So, that is probably the best reveal in a Professor Layton game that we've ever seen. Because in the first game, there's a lot of questions. Because, like, the first game had a kind of similar thing where it's like, oh, the father set up all these puzzles to find someone to look after your daughter, except that you locked her up in a tower for decades or whatever, leaving her all by herself. And it's like, and you can't guarantee that, because Don Palo could have been the one to get up there and find that golden apple, and then what would you have done? Like, there's a lot of problems there. Diabolical Box came close, because Diabolical Box came close as in, like, came close to this, because there wasn't anything, apart from the hallucinogenic gas, which, whatever, the actual premise of the story and the ultimate reveal was probably the strongest of the original trilogy. But the third game just went completely off the rails. It was like, oh, an entire town with a functioning skybox and water sources and everything that would make a functional town inside the planet. Somehow. It's like, no, that did not happen. That did not happen. You didn't make that. That's not a real thing that you've created. There's actually just no way you could have ever possibly constructed that. Whereas this is actually kind of well put together. I never thought I'd say it. But, like, the idea of, hey, my daughter thinks she's been possessed by the Great Witch. No, okay, now let's be clear. It's not flawless. The fact that he's like, oh, I don't know why the bell would have been destroyed in the first place. That's number one. Number two, the fact that Espella would have gone up there despite being told why she can't go up there. He probably could put more safeguards in place. But once we get past all that, the reason why this town is the way that it is, that motive is probably the strongest we've seen so far. In terms of, like, just wanting, like, going out of their way to make sure that Espella thinks that if Vizela is real, then it can't possibly be her. And then and then he collaborates with Darklaw to make sure that they don't actually, to make sure that no one actually dies, but Espella thinks that she's not actually Vizela. And to be clear, what they've done is still horrible with the whole hypnosis and test subjects and things like that. Like, that's not okay. But at least the motive for why he did it actually has a through line, which is not something that you can say for any of the other games. Except maybe Diabolical Box. So, credit where credit is due. Now, to be clear, there's many more problems, and I'll get to them when the time comes, but it is not as egregious so far as a typical Professor Layton game. We'll see if that holds true. But for now, it's not so bad. Now, this final trial is dragging on a little bit. I feel like we've been in this same trial for freaking ever. We probably could have cut this down a little bit, but, whatever. Project Labyrinthia. And this is all done for one girl. Spella was only able to be herself when she lived within my story. Oh, the irony of it. Only within a world in which Spella was real could Spella's tragic memories be sealed. All this while, Eve was assisting me. I was the first shade. As soon as the story began to disappear from the scene, if Spella was to see some magic, then someone had to don this robe. That's the robe of invisibility! I gave Spella new memories so that she could live in this town with everyone else. I also sealed the memory of her friend Eve. What? My existence was too strongly connected to her memory of the fire. Afterwards, I returned as Darklaw, a stranger to Spella. But even if you were doing this for a spell's sake, that's just going too far! I made that choice. I do not regret the past 10 years. Meanwhile, my father was supporting Labyrinthia from behind the scenes in his own way. Do you mean his contributions as an alchemist? My father's knowledge of medicine was indispensable for this town to function. The hallucinogenic ink was my father's work as well. So it was. Newton and Eve sacrificed more than anyone else for the sake of Spella in this town. I will be forever indebted to them. We wanted to save Spella just like you. But then there's still something I don't understand. Why were you trying to destroy this fake world? In the end, you chose to betray Spella and Mr. Cantabella. Maybe that's because her father killed himself. That might have something to do with it. I'm just going out on a limb here. Oh, but I told you already, have I not? It was your revenge against Mr. Cantabella for choosing to end the story, correct? I wonder what was the true reason. Professor, would Miss Belduke really betray them merely because she did not want the story to end? I dare say there was another considerably more important reason. She had another reason? No need to frown in dismay, Mr. Wright. Please leave this to me. Oh my god, Phoenix is just useless. He's not doing anything anymore. It's the note.
Have a look.
This letter was Miss Belduke's real motive. What is this? I think I've seen it before. That's a letter written by Mr. Belduke for Mr. Cantabella. It's also Mr. Belduke's suicide note. Yeah. Something was tormenting Belduke. It became too much for him to bear and drove him to suicide. These past 10 years, I thought Father was glad to be helping Cantabella. But little did I know he was suffering terrible anguish all that time. All those years, Father was racked by a crushing sense of guilt. His agony culminated in the incident of 3 months ago, Mr. Belduke's death. Before Labyrinthia was created, certain things had to be concealed in order to seal Spella's memories. Had she seen them, she would have remembered. They were simply too dangerous for her. One of them was me. Spella's friend Eve had to be reborn as a shade and disappear into the forest. The next thing was the bell tower. I see. Had she seen it, it would have been certain to serve those traumatic memories. Memories of the legendary fire. The only way to prevent that was to erase the bell tower from Labyrinthia. And how exactly did you plan on doing that? But how could you do that? Using the same method as with this rope. The rope of his Which, oh, that's another thing, by the way. If magic doesn't exist, then how do you explain the rope of invisibility? Although it wasn't as easy as it sounds. In other words, the bell tower had been there all this time. Only the townspeople couldn't see it, is that correct? Indeed. I don't know what to say. At any rate, the situation changed due to that lightning strike 3 months ago, did it not? It was the most unfortunate accident. The lightning set the bell tower's cover on fire. That cover was quickly consumed by flames, revealing the abominable bell tower. The beginning of all this, the Bell of Ruin, appeared before us. 'Twas mockery of our efforts. A tower emerging from the flames. Must it seem like a sign of divine anger to Mr. Belduke? A sign that no matter how you attempt to conceal your sins, the truth will eventually float up to the surface. Having realized his father chose death. He was such a kind-hearted man. I didn't have an inkling of what he had been going through. To him, the participation of Labyrinthia's people within this project was not voluntary. even though they had themselves signed the contract. I believe he felt those people were being deceived, which they technically were, let's be clear about that. Father took his life because of you, Cantabella. Also, how exactly could you possibly sustain that bell tower thing? Because if it's literally just a robe that makes you invisible that you throw over the tower, it snows here, right? I'm assuming it snows here. I mean, I don't know exactly geographically where this town is supposed to be, but I'm assuming it's somewhere near London, which means that yes, it would be snowing at some point during the year. And also, even if it wouldn't, even if it's in a place where there's no snow, it would still rain. And either of those two things would leave marks on the robe of invisibility. You can't possibly conceal this. And also, has no one just walked through town square and then, like, hit their head on the giant tower? Like, huh, that's weird. There's something here. I can feel it, but I can't see it. I don't, that's not, like... Unless you're trying to tell me that it doesn't, that the robe of invisibility also makes it so it doesn't have a physical presence in this world, so that rain and snow just fall right through it and people can walk through it, in which case, oh boy. I lost my father 3 months ago. That day my revenge began. Your revenge? The first step of my new plan was to rewrite the story. What did you just say? As president of Labyrinthia Incorporated, you had to spend most of your time in London. Over the past few years, you were coming to Labyrinthia only for the parades. So naturally, I knew you would never notice if the story was slightly changed. That explains that I couldn't help thinking there's something strange going on. Mr. Cantabella is Ispella's father, after all. He wouldn't have made Ispella a witch in his story. Ispella was... a witch? When did that happen? How could you have known, after all? Let me fill you in on the details. Ispella has already been tried once within the witch's court. Impossible! How is he not aware of what's going on in his own town? Look at you, what a fine author of that grand story you are. You left all the work in Labyrinthia to me. Meanwhile, you were making millions for yourself in London. What a pathetic excuse for a father. You didn't even notice your precious little Ispella was in such danger. Miss Belduc, why did you do that to Ispella? Do you even need to ask? I did it to unlock her memories. You mean, when the legendary fire took place, Ispella was so traumatized that she closed herself off to the world. We were just little girls then. That tragic accident was too much for us to handle. This fictitious town was created as a facade to keep the truth away from Ispella. But the weight of all these lies led my father to his suicide. Despite that, the person responsible for all this carried on as if nothing had happened. I couldn't forgive him. As Belduc's bereaved daughter, I had to have my revenge against both Cantabellas. Judge, this is the whole truth. Now you know the true identity of Bezella.
Objection!
You say that is the whole truth, but is that really the case? Professor, what are you going on about now? We have been provided with a clear picture of what happened to Ispella so long ago. Nevertheless, we haven't yet heard your testimony. Don't be ridiculous. This would be the last testimony in this trial. Tell us about the night of the legendary fire. I request that you tell us your story. Who do you think you are, Inquisitor? I am merely one of the supporting characters within this tale. However, I am very much interested in the truth. This has been a very long trial, of which this shall be the last interrogation. The court demands that the single other witness of the legendary fire provide us with her testimony. Very well. There is only one truth. Nothing can change that. Okay. Final witness testimony and final cross-examination of the game. Here we go. And, of course, Layton's theme is the cross-examination music, because Phoenix just isn't in this game anymore, apparently. Ispella wanted to ring the bell no matter what, so we went up to the belfry. The festival celebrations had already started. The mechanisms to ringing the bell was at a height even we could reach. The next thing I remember is coming to and running to Ispella's side. I was shaking her until she finally opened her eyes. The next moment we saw the nightmarish view. All strength abandoned us and we didn't know what to do. That was when we were found by my father, Mr. Cantabella. The bell could only be rung with a special mechanism. That's right. It was made in such a way that even a child could use it. It was probably constructed by my father. I suppose he wanted to make it possible for anyone to ring that bell. In light of the events that followed, that was clearly a very foolish decision. A mechanism for ringing the bell. I noticed something like that on a pillar when we went to the belfry earlier. I better make a note of it in the court record. Top floor device. A device for ringing the bell of ruin. Even a child can use it. Oh dear. Fate can certainly be cruel. I have to agree. If only we had not discovered those ruins and brought that bell to our town. I don't know why they didn't just destroy the bell in the first. If they knew it was that dangerous, why wouldn't they just destroy it outright? That sounds like a really stupid idea to leave it there. Unfortunately, Mr. Cantabella, the tragedy occurred. All that remains for us to do is seek out the truth. Not for the sake of vengeance, but for the sake of the future. Mr. Wright. Yes? You have been fighting fiercely to uncover the truth. This is the final interrogation. I trust you know what to do. I mean, I've just been sitting here letting Layton do all the work, so I mean, honestly, I've lost my touch. I'm gonna retire now. Maybe take a piano playing, poker playing, I don't know. Leave it to me. To be honest, I have no idea what lies ahead, but whatever it is, there's no question we need to get to the bottom of it. There's gotta be light at the end of this tunnel. Okay. Cross-examination. The truth about the legendary fire. Festival celebrations, okay. I don't see any blatant contradictions. All strength abandoned us and we didn't know what to do. Okay, so... I mean, I guess I just have to press everything again, but I'm gonna start here, because... You say you don't know what to do, so it seems like it's... I'm assuming you must have done something up there, so I just want to see if I can find out more information about it. You didn't leave the belfry until their arrival? Of course not. We were paralyzed with fear. It was an event so traumatizing it still haunts us. Spella fainted again when she saw the fire dragon. I was crying and wailing until our fathers found us. We went to the bell tower as it was a good vantage point. We weren't expecting to find our daughters there. Of course, neither suspected at that point that the disaster had been caused by the Bell of Ruin. Eve was in tears, sobbing violently. As for Spella, she was in a daze. Like she is right now. Her face frozen in an expression of disbelief. She didn't know what was happening around her. I cannot say this was certainly as my memory is a little vague. But I think I was trying to protect her. Oh, wait. Oh?
Hang on!
Mr. Cantabella. I remember that very well, as if it happened yesterday. Cantabella, would you mind telling us what you saw?
Eve! Espella! Are you alright?
Daddy!
Eve! What on earth happened here?
It was Bazella! Bazella the witch!
Bazella? What are you talking about?
Bazella comes out whenever someone rings the bell, right?
What have you done? You didn't...
Oh, please, Mr. Cantabella, don't be angry at Estella.
Yeah, she definitely rang it. Darklaw definitely rang the bell. Eve said it with a most serious look on her face. When she said that, I grasped the situation. I realized what had transpired in the belfry, and I thought to myself, I must protect these children.
Eve? I'm so sorry, Eve. Espella.
Espella, sweetie.
Dad, please forgive me. You've done all this for me.
Espella, you're with us again.
All this for me.
Well. At last it would appear we are one step away from the truth. Professor, you seem to already know what that truth is. Of course he does. Do I? That remains to be seen. Continue the interrogation and we shall all know soon enough. Very well. The court agrees with Inquisitor Layton. Witness, continue your testimony.
As you wish.
Okay, wanted to ring the bell no matter what. Okay, nothing there. Festival celebrations already started. Okay, it's normal. Next thing, coming to the side. Okay, so your memory doesn't... Your memory's lacking between then and now. I'm shaking her until she finally opened her eyes. Okay, so she was unconscious while you were still up and about. Interesting.
Hold it!
So it was you who woke Espella up, witness?
Yes, it was me. She was out cold, curled up on the floor until I shook her awake. As soon as she came to, she turned to look at the town to that nightmarish view stretching out before us.
Oh, wait.
Hang on!
Espella? Something odd? Excuse me, Espella.
Espella, you okay? Yes, everything's fine.
My apologies for bringing back such troubling memories. Nevertheless, you must endeavor to face them and overcome the power they hold over you.
Yes, I remember it now. The fire dragon. I summoned it because I'm Bazella.
No, Espella, it was just an illusion.
No, you're wrong, Dad. It wasn't an illusion, it was a fact.
If I hadn't rung the bell, none of this would have happened. Gisela is the bringer of disaster, and that's what I've done to our town. Where are you going? Isabella? Quick, after her! She's running to the bell tower. She runs to the bell tower. Why would she lock herself in the... No! Okay, you know, it'd be really helpful if magic existed right now. Someone call the fire department or something. Get a step ladder or a ladder. I don't care, whatever. Yup, that's what I was afraid of. Oh, no. Isabella, be careful. It's dangerous up there. That's what I was afraid of. No, she's gonna jump. She's gonna jump. Okay. Does someone have a ladder or something? Or like a trampoline? Or like a levitation spell? Or anything? Hey, Layton, do you happen to have the ability to transform into a giant trampoline? Because apparently you can do everything else in the world. How about that? Can you transform into a trampoline so she can land safely on the ground? Because she's gonna jump. She's gonna goddamn jump. I have no right to be here. No, that's not true. Nick! It's gonna be something crazy. I can see that, but what the heck can I do? Isabella, please don't make any hasty decisions. Mr. Layton. The truth is close now. Be brave for a little while longer. The truth is wasn't clear already. No, Dark Lover in the Well. She's a piece of shit. You're fine. You didn't do anything. Maybe mistaken. You should know the whole story. Huh? Isn't that so, Mr. Wright? I had the same feeling when I was listening to Eve's testimony. I felt something was not right. Really? I thought that was pretty much it. We still puzzle that don't yet fit all themselves that hints to the solution. No way! You mean Isabella didn't ring the bell? Obviously, it was Starclaw. Not since, of course, she did. No, she was unconscious when you were, so it's hard to say for sure she didn't ring the bell. However, we gotta have until we'll clear any doubts. So it says, okay, with pleasure. And this. Because we can clearly see that the device isn't on the side where the fire dragon was. And if she woke up next to the fire dragon, then she couldn't have, like, if it's not near where the fire dragon is, then she couldn't have waken up to see it because the device isn't right there, so she couldn't have been the one to hit it. Yes, that's right. This fretwork here is the same as what I saw that day. When I look at it now, it seems so small, even adorable. Defense, what's that to do with anything? As you will not recall, Mr. Cantabella told us that people who drink the groundwater here suffer from a condition where they fall unconscious at the moment they hear the sound of pure silver. After the bell sounded, you recovered in consciousness sooner than Isabella. Exactly. You ran to her side and shook her awake. As soon as she opened her eyes, she saw the fire dragon. In other words, if it was Isabella who rang the bell, that would mean the device for ringing the bell must be very close to the fabric of the dragon. Isabella, can you please check that out for me? See the contraptions locating the dragon fretwork. Okay, give me a minute. It shouldn't be that hard. It's not that you don't have a lot of room to wiggle. You don't have a lot of wiggle room up there. Mr. Wright! Isabella, did you find it? I don't know if it's the right thing, but there's something on the other side of the belfry captured with a handle. What? On the other side? That's right. I figured there was something weird when we went up the bell tower, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. No way. You see where I'm going with this, don't you, Miss Belduke? If it was this fellow who rang the bell, there's no way she could have seen the fire dragon when she woke up. No, this can't be right. An excellent deduction, Mr. White. Miss Darklaw. It seems that everything is now clear as day. What do you mean? Why, of course. I mean the answer to the question of who rang the bell. It was her. It had to be. What do you say, Mr. White? Looks like we've arrived at the same conclusion. We now know that only one person could have done it. Wait, what will saying it out loud do? Is there a problem, Mr. Cantabella? It wasn't your daughter who rang that bell. Should that not lift some burden off your shoulders? Are you not curious to know the name of the true culprit who has pinned the blame on your daughter after all this while? How about you just stop taunting us? I just say the name already. Who is the true culprit? Let's do it, Professor. Are you ready? I am always ready, Mr. Wright. Because I'm the best at everything. It's time to set things straight. The person who rang the bell is Darklaw herself.
Have a look.
It's you, Eve Belduke. Me? But there were only the two of you in the belfry at the time. You know that better than anyone. And as it wasn't the speller who rang the bell, it had to be you. That's preposterous. It can't be true. It was an extremely traumatizing event for both you and Isabella. Your friend's memories were altered from the shock without her even realizing it. She believes she was a witch who rang the bell and summoned a dragon, which incinerated the town. However, Miss Belduke Isabella wasn't the only one whose memories were warped by the horrors you two witnessed. You were affected as well.
No. It wasn't me.
I mean, it was, though.
Isabella, she rang the bell. It was her, not me. But why? What are these flashbacks? I've never had these before.
What's the matter? I don't want to do this now. We'll be taken over by Bezella. Bezella is just a fairy tale. And you're the one who said you wanted to come and ring the bell. I did, but I changed my mind. Hey? After coming all this way? Oh. Hmm?
Ow, that's pain.
Jesus Christ, this game's dark.
That nightmare was too much for two young girls to take in.
Like, I know we've been talking about the town burning for many episodes now, but that cutscene just... Jesus Christ.
Your young minds needed to protect themselves. That's why you subconsciously repressed those memories.
Then, if that's true, for the past 10 years, I've been pinning the blame for what I've done on Espella. It can't be. It can't be true. It's impossible!
Ah!
Darkglass just disappeared!
She's donned the invisibility robe.
Hi, where's the Darklight? She's run away. But did you hear that? It was her that wants to destroy this town. Our lives have already been messed up so much. We don't need this now. Just gotta pay for what she did. Capture her. Does anyone have a bucket of flour lying around for us to throw at her?
Tower. Espella's gone!
No, she's on the roof!
How did you get it there?
I beg you, don't blame Eve.
Layton, turn into a trampoline, quickly!
It really doesn't matter anymore who rang the accursed bell. This town was all created for me. It's my fault you...
No, it's the idiots that left the bell in the underground ruins, like, bell dangerous, let's leave it out for anyone to take, cool!
Espella, what are you saying? Please, come down right now!
No, don't do that! Don't come down! Don't do that! Just stay there! We'll come to you! Don't come down! That's gonna end in disaster!
You haven't done anything wrong! It was all my fault!
Dad, I know that you did this for me.
Hey, Layton, how's that trampoline coming?
You've been so kind to me. And what did I do? I selfishly ran away from home.
Hey, Luke, how about you call on a team of birds to help float her down?
Espella?
I will finish your story for you.
No!
The evil witch will be gone forever.
That's not how this works!
Dad, thank you for everything you've done for me.
Wait. Trampoline, we need a trampoline right now. Or a ladder, or a step ladder, or something.
Wait! Don't do it, Espella!
What? What? How did... Who the...
What are you...
But how did you get up there that fast?
Isn't that... Dog?
And why did you need to...
But why, Eve? Why would you? I finally remembered everything I've done.
You're not the only one who remembered. You still have the pendant.
Yes, of course. That's because... somehow I always knew it was important to me.
Espella,
You kept your pendant as well, didn't you, Eve?
for some reason, I just couldn't let it go.
Espella! Miss Darklaw!
Quick! They'll fall if we don't do something!
Let's go. We have to save
She
them.
didn't need to turn herself invisible to
No, you won't make it there in time.
climb to the top of the tower.
The wooden handrail Eve's holding onto is rotted through.
Also, how did you climb to the tower?
Some sort of magic to save them.
No way!
Magic, you say?
Layton?
Got an idea, Professor?
I swear to God.
If a bit of magic is all that's needed to save these two young ladies, then perhaps that is something I can arrange.
Layton?
What? You
What are
can't?
you gonna do? What insane new thing are you gonna do now?
Oh!
You have to let go! Otherwise you'll fall too!
What? He can... What?
Professor?
Wait. This game... Oh my God, they just couldn't resist. You couldn't resist going one goddamn game without giving Professor Layton some insane new ability that just saves the day at the end. You couldn't resist, could you? And this time, because previously you could be like, it's not a valid defense, but I can imagine someone saying, oh, well, you know, maybe he's really is an engineering genius, or oh, maybe he is a master swordsman, or maybe he does know how to fly a flying car. He's levitating people now. Professor, you're a sorcerer. No, Miss Faye. We've already established that magic doesn't exist even in this town. But then how did you just do that? What you have just seen was the last and greatest... Oh, you're playing this pursuit theme now. An illusion? Magic is but an illusion, and this illusion has been produced through the power of suggestion and Labyrinth's medication. Everyone in Labyrinthia has been under this particular magic spell. Now then, shall we break the spell? Magic is the last mystery to be solved. Wait, what? You've seen through all my tricks, Layton. I wouldn't have done it without the vital hints you gave me when we spoke in your tower. The final spell is concealed at the start. Okay, so what does that mean? As you know, all the spells are listed within this book. Right, the Grand Grimoire! Now, what did Mr. Candelera mean by the start? The front cover? Precisely, Mr. Wright. The final spell shall dispel the illusion. The correct incantation is hidden on the front cover itself.
Well then, Mr. Wright. This is the final puzzle. Soon, a new day will begin for the townspeople. Let us put an end to this illusion.
Okay, but how did you cause it to float in midair?
Yeah.
Also, of all the times you choose to play this awesome pursuit theme, you pick now for a puzzle. Really? Okay, sure thing. Hidden on the cover of the Grand Grimoire are the characters that spell out the true magical incantation. Select the characters on the touchscreen and slide them over their counterparts on the tomb's cover to make them vanish. The grand finale approaches. Remove the extra magical characters from the Grand Grimoire's cover to reveal the hidden incantation. Okay. Sounds like pain and agony. Okay, so we have to match the symbols. Okay, well this one's easy. Okay, so I tap it on the touchscreen and then I move it over on the top screen. Okay. I see another one. This one goes up here. It does not go up there, I lied. Oh wait, yes it does. Okay, it just had to rotate into position, okay. What else we got? There's a 3 that kind of goes like here-ish maybe? Yes, okay, it does go there. Great. Do we have an E? We do have an E. There's an E down here that can go up to that size. So this is literally just a matching game to match them all together. Okay, that's kind of lame as a final puzzle, but alright.
Let us think about it together. Every puzzle has an answer.
Okay, we solved the final puzzle of the game. Now someone explain to me how you cause them to levitate. How are they flying? How?
The sun is rising, and when it does, its light will reveal the truth behind Labyrinthia mysteries.
Now, Professor?
Yes. Shall we, Mr. Wright?
Tail Ender. Really? What? There's a crane? Wait a minute now. Okay, wait. I have like 6,000 questions.
This is the real magic behind Labyrinthia.
Excellent work, my boy.
Huh? Hey, it's Luke!
What? He can be what? So now Luke can just drive cranes. Okay. Great. Okay, so that's one of my 6,000 questions answered. Let's address the other ones. Like, for instance, so assuming you're going to try to tell me that the reason why you see witches flying around is because they were all suspended by cranes, which even if we buy the fact that the cranes will... Okay, I don't even... There's so many... I can't even...
Hang on a second. The town's full of machinery?
Okay, so, first of all, let's start surface level and work our way down to the nitty gritty. So, they're obviously going to try to say that they just threw a robo-invisibility over all this stuff. Which, even if that's the case, the machines don't stop making noise. You can still hear them if they're invisible. So, there's no way that would ever fly. You'd still be able to hear the cranes moving around. But if we move past that, there's no way the cranes could possibly move. Like, remember when the witch was inside that building where at the workshop where Belduke lived? Remember that? Yeah, there's no way the crane's not getting inside that building. How'd that witch fly in there? Then if we move past that, so apparently there's just a giant skybox of metal machinery permanently above this tower. So now what you're trying to tell me is that the wooden bell tower is more susceptible to a lightning strike than the metallic machinery directly above it. Really? You're sure about that game? You really want to go in that direction? I don't... Oh my god, this... Oh, wow.
So much for magic. It was all done with these machines.
You can't possibly maintain this illusion. You can't possibly do this.
That's right. With magic, witches can fly, buildings can disappear. Those are no easy feats to stage. To make all those incredible things real, we needed a great deal of machinery.
Couldn't he have just, I don't know, made the magic a bit simpler?
A witch would say the incantation, and shades would stop time with their silver bells.
Which also doesn't make any sense, because again, do they have no recollection of being knocked out? Because I'm pretty sure Barnum said something about how, like, when he got knocked out in the forest, we talked to him and I'm pretty sure he said, like, I was knocked unconscious. Like, he remembered being knocked unconscious. But, so the other citizens just not have any recollection of falling asleep? Do they not realize that time has passed? Like, you can't possibly maintain this illusion.
And they'd go wild with these machines, making all sorts of crazy stuff happen. That's so cool. I'd love to try it.
I took a quick crash course before operating the machines.
Not
bad, hey?
I see Layton has imparted his ability to do everything down onto Luke.
Yes, Luke. What would we do without you?
Except apparently dodge planes. That's beyond Luke's realm of capabilities.
So when's my turn? I want to pick something up off the ground and make it fly through the air.
I wish you'd stop looking at me when you say that, Marianne.
Well, in any case, I think we should head back to the courthouse.
Right you are, Professor. The judge might have fallen asleep waiting for us.
The sun has risen above Labyrinthia, and has shown us our town's true form. Well, I really don't think there's any need for a verdict anymore. The witches on trial weren't witches after all. I am deeply relieved that those I have sentenced are still alive and well. At last, I can step down from this seat with a clear conscience. And now, the final verdict in the last witches' court session ever to be held.
Not that it means much, but yay, we did it. Even the glorious remastered orchestral Ace Attorney victory music isn't enough to save us from the atrocity that we just had to experience live before our very eyes. I'm very grateful for all the help, by which I mean thanks for doing everything for me, because I apparently can't do anything for myself. You know. The feeling is mutual, Mr. Wright. A gentleman always fights for the truth. I could not have done otherwise. I'd like to congratulate the two of you. You both did splendidly in court. Oh, it's the judge! You've brought to light the truth about this town. Although, I still find it astonishing that we could not see all of this. I cannot even begin to imagine how it was achieved. You were all given a very simple instruction when you were hypnotized. You cannot see pure black. What? 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 That's not how that works! You don't... Okay, that's not... Okay, so what they're trying to tell you is that the cloaks that they use are just made out of black metal, but that's not... Okay, so what they're trying to say is, like, I hypnotize you to that you can't see the color black anymore, which is, like, that's just nonsense. Like, okay, so let's say I hypnotize you into thinking the color green does not exist. You don't suddenly gain X-ray vision when you go to the forest and you see all the leaves on the trees. You don't see through the leaves. Even if you can't see the color itself, you still can't see through it. That's not how this game. What are you doing? Wait a second. There are plenty of black objects all over Labyrinthia, aren't there? Yeah, that's right. My hair is charcoal black too. Ah, but it's not pure black. What? What we often perceive as the color black is in fact far from being pure black. Our brains interpret reflections of light as colors. Objects which reflect even the smallest amount of light are not pure black. Pure black is only encountered within nature as darkness. Darkness, sir? The machines used in Labyrinthia are coated in a special material. That's not how this works. That doesn't matter. Even if you can't see the color itself, you still can't see through the goddamn material. It's not... And that also doesn't explain how they somehow don't... Like, this whole town would be covered in snow and rain by now. Or someone would have bumped into one of these things. Also, wait a minute. How did Luke... Wait a minute. Wait a minute. How did Luke know to jump in? Okay, obviously Layton told Luke, go to the crane. Whatever. How could he have seen the crane? If it's invisible, how could he have seen the crane? How did he know where it was? How did he know where the buttons would have operated? But even if we get past all that, if Luke can jump in the crane and operate normally, then we know they still have physical presence in the world, which means that somebody at some point should have bumped into one of these things, or at the very least bumped into the goddamn bell tower, which is right in the middle of town square! When you think about it, this town abounds in all things invisible. Huh? Miss Darklaw, should I say Miss Duke? Yes? For 10 long years, your memories have been suppressed. The truth about what occurred in the belfry was visible to me, you mean? Mr. Cantabella and your father knew it all along. They knew who actually rang the bell. What? Did they really? Is that true, Cantabella? As we've demonstrated, it was easy to deduce one situation in the belfry. But if we knew that all along, why didn't he say something? It was, of course, for your own good.
Don't be...
You were trying to pin the blame for that disaster on Aspella. Yes, I was, but if you knew that, why did you keep quiet about it? If you had only scolded me back then for lying, maybe Aspella wouldn't have suffered such trauma. It was your eyes, Eve. What? Your eyes weren't those of a liar. You believed in what you said. You truly thought it was Aspella. What you saw was too much for you to bear. Your mind blocked out the real memory of what happened in order to maintain your own sanity. Had I called you a liar then, you would probably have suffered a mental breakdown. Mr. Cantabella and your father created this town. You were mistaken in thinking it was purely for Aspella's sake. It was also for you, Miss Duke. Remember what your father wrote in his suicide note.
I have only 2 concerns. The first is my daughter. It pains me to be leaving her alone in this world, although she probably doesn't think of me as her father.
I had an argument with my father once. He was always thinking only about the town and paid no attention to me. So you moved out and broke off contact with him. But you were wrong about your father. Not a single day passed without him thinking about you. He helped to make the story I was weaving a reality for your sake. I've been so ignorant. I was so convinced father was driven to suicide by you. Your father couldn't bear the sense of guilt he had accumulated over the past 10 years. Even though he killed himself in the end, I believe you were always the most important person to him.
Eve?
Aspella, what I did to you is unforgivable. I rewrote your story, putting you through all this. I can't believe I went to such an extreme because of one wrong assumption.
No, it's okay, Eve. I wasn't angry.
You weren't?
You've always been on my side, protecting me. And even today, you saved my life.
Aspella.
I also owe you an apology. After all, I forgot about my dearest friend. I'm so sorry, Eve. Ah, there you are, Eve.
Oh, there you are, Perry.
Your cat's called Eve.
You know what I've just noticed? You two are very much alike. You and Eve the cat.
What? It's all in your head.
It looks like Eve has taken a liking to the other Eve.
You've got that right, and the similarity is really striking.
Oh dear.
Well, at least this game knows how to nail its characters. I'll give it that
My
much.
accidental guests, Professor Layton and Mr. Wright.
Accidental and yet somehow were already predicted in the storytelling pages themselves.
Yes? I must say, I am indebted to you.
Don't mention it.
You know, when I started planning my revenge 3 months ago, Mr. Layton was a part of my plans. I needed to lure him to Labyrinthia.
Why me?
You were famous in London, and word of your skills reached me even here. What's more, you specialize in mysteries. So I thought that if you came to this town, you'd feel compelled to solve ours.
Well, I am honored.
That's cool. And what about me?
Well, about you. How should I put it?
Jesus Christ, this game just doesn't stop. It's like Layton is the best at everything, also Phoenix kind of sucks.
Your arrival here was purely accidental.
You mean it was...
As you know, Espella escaped and got involved in that incident on the freighter. As a consequence, I had no choice but to bring you here.
I see. I shouldn't have asked. My fragile pride has suffered yet another blow.
Yeah, because this game just hates you.
Nick, you can't escape your fate. You're doomed to always find trouble if it doesn't find you first.
How about some words of sympathy for a change?
I am terribly sorry. The only thing on my mind the last 3 months was revenge.
Whatever your intentions were, the last witch trial has ended in the best possible way for this town. You were correct in your judgment. You always are.
You're too kind to me.
I thank you from the bottom of my heart, Eve, for opening my eyes.
Sorry to break up this little happy ending, but I've sort of got an important question. Why were you going to end the story?
Only Newton knew the real reason. I am suffering from an incurable illness.
What?
Dad, you're ill. Is it serious?
It is a rare disease with no known cure.
Well, this certainly took a turn. This game is dark. This, pulls no punches.
Why didn't you tell me? Had I known...
I wanted this to be my secret. I suppose that was a bad decision on my part. I thought I'd finish the story before I died and lay the foundations for a new world. Honestly.
Dad, why did it have to happen to you? Especially now that we're finally back together.
Yeah, that's like literally the worst timing in the world. Jesus Christ.
Cheer up, Espella.
How can I?
Labrellum's new drug development center contacted me a short while ago. They have succeeded in creating a new medicine, thanks to Belduke's research.
What?
It's a top-secret wonder drug for my illness.
Why would... What? Why would you even bring that up? Wait, okay. So from the writer's perspective, never do this. If you're writing your own stories, never ever do this. Okay, so let me tell you what just happened there. They introduced a conflict and then resolved it less than 60 seconds later. The conflict being, I have an illness. It's terminal. It will kill me. There is no cure. And then less than a minute later, it's like, oh, but don't worry, because there actually is a cure. They're working on it right now. I'm going to be fine. Don't worry. It's totally going to be fine. You have nothing to worry about at all. Why even bring it up? Literally, why even bring that up? What was the point in that? Also, in-universe, you probably should lead with that, because Espella's heart just dropped into her goddamn stomach, and so did Eve's, probably. You don't open that statement with, oh, I'm terminally ill and there's no cure. You know, you lead with, the reason is because I'm... But it doesn't make any sense. If there's a cure, then there's no reason to end the story.
A wonder drug.
Newton had been working on finding a cure for my illness until the very end.
You just need to say, hey, I'm sick, but don't worry, there is a cure, I'm gonna get treated, and I'm gonna be fine. I just wanted to finally tell you after keeping it a secret for all this time. Don't say, I'm sick, I'm gonna die, there's no cure, and then wait then bury the lead for a whole minute, be like, oh, by the way, there actually is a lie. There is a cure. I totally just lied to you, by the way. Haha.
It would seem that the cure was his final gift to me. Newton was the truest friend I ever had. I'm going to undergo surgery. Do not fear. I shall return. So stop making that sad face.
You're the one who put it on her! You said there was no cure! You gave her that sad face, you idiot!
Dad, will everything be back to how it once was?
Of course it will.
And Eve, will you still be my friend?
Of course.
Thank you.
One big happy family. Like I said, characters, they're really nailing them. They really, really nailed the characters this time around. But good God, everything about this world just... I'm gonna drop by Miss DeClaire's bakery. I've got so much to tell her. Do you mind if I go, Dad? I won't take long. Of course not. Please do. Looks like Eve wants to come too. Which one? What? Oh, you meant the cat. Miss Fella, mind if we tag along? Not at all. You're welcome to come. Awesome. Maybe we'll get some tasty baked bread out of this. I thought we were going there for a different reason. Anyway, I'll be off then, Professor. Pass on my regards to Mrs. Eclair, Duke. You know, there's kind of a home we gotta be getting to right now. Like, we should probably go home, you know? Home. That place that we left to come here. Probably a good idea. So, what's gonna happen to the town? If the other Layton games are anything to take note of, it's gonna be destroyed, or the magic's gonna go away, or whatever. I've released everyone from hypnosis. They will soon recover the memories of their lives before Labyrinthia. As of today, Project Labyrinthia is over. Ah, I see. They are free to leave if they so wish. I imagine they will make a run for it. This place will turn into an uninhabited ruins, just like it was 10 years ago.
I have some doubts about that.
Your Honor!
I now understand that this town is an artificial creation of yours. Nonetheless, to us Labyrinthians, the past 10 years were real.
No one can yet tell how this town will change. However, it is possible that some people will want to stay. Who knows? Perhaps you will find yourself creating a new town along with them.
A new town.
I am no longer the judge, but, if possible, I would like to remain here.
You have my gratitude, Your Honor.
You need not address me as Your Honor anymore, Sir Storyteller.
And so, the last witch trial has drawn to a close.
After a very, very long time.
What did Mr. Wright, Mr. Layton, and my father talk about? That I do not know. But Dad made a promise to me. Once everyone recovers their memories and he is cured of his illness, he will return to write a new story with everyone's help.
Maybe abandon the whole new story thing. Maybe no more writing stories. Maybe just live your lives.
This time, the story will be real without any lies or illusions.
What a beautiful sound.
Almost as if it's ringing in a new beginning for the town.
Thank you, Eve.
Okay then. Whenever you are ready, Mr. Barnum.
What? You're just here now? What? They just forgot about you for the whole game.
Thank you! Thank you all so much for everything!
Espella, you take care now.
You too, Mr. Cantabella. Bye! Be sure to visit us again!
No. We're never coming back here.
Very best.
No. We are never coming back here.
Mr. Wright, I knew I could count on you to stand your ground and fight me to the very end.
Me too. I always believed in you, Professor. And I know it's why we managed to get to the mysterious truth behind this town.
When we get back to England, we'll drop by and see you, Luke.
Great! I'll show you around London.
Wow. Wow. That was something. That was... First off, I can't think of a more fitting way to close out 2020 than with what I'm assuming is going to be a storybook ending with the book closing and concluding one chapter as we move on to the next. So, anyway, well, I guess now it's time to talk about the game. So, Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney. So first things first, we'll get the superficial stuff out of the way first. The music was orchestral, orgasmic awesomeness. Easily the best Professor Layton soundtrack. Maybe not the best Ace Attorney soundtrack, but definitely the most... It sounded the most epic, and it had the most impact out of all of them, because of the epic orchestra. I mean, it sucks that the Pursuit theme didn't play more than like 3 times in the game, but when it did play, oh man, it really upped the stakes. Also, graphically, like animations and models and things like that, visually stunning all around. Cutscenes were awesome. The character models were awesome. It took some time to get used to Phoenix and Maya's new models, but they grew on me pretty quickly. Overall, I was really impressed with the 3D models. Gameplay-wise, biggest thing I was worried about from this game, from a gameplay perspective, is the thing where you have a crossover and you have to dumb down the elements of both franchises to make them palatable to the opposing audience. So, like, you make the Professor Layton puzzles easier and make the Ace Attorney sections easier to make so sort of the opposing audience can do them more easily. But that didn't happen here. Well, okay. It didn't happen with the Ace Attorney sections. But the Professor Layton puzzles seemed much easier. There weren't any puzzles where I stopped and went, this here is a tough one. There also didn't seem to be any progression either. Like, and there it is. The story is over. Oh, post-credit scene? Post-credit scene.
You know, Professor, I feel like I've just finished reading a really long story.
Indeed, Luke. I know what you mean. It certainly was an enthralling adventure.
I wonder how Espella and the others back in Labyrinthia are getting on. I'd love to go back and see them. Although, I'd rather not have to be sucked into a book to get there.
Perhaps we should ask Carmine to come along with us.
Great! It's a real relief he recovered from all of his injuries. But he was a bit put out when he found out you'd already solved all the town's secrets, Professor.
Well, we mustn't forget that we didn't solve them all by ourselves. We couldn't have done it without the help of our friends across the Atlantic.
I wonder what they're doing right now. Battling away in a courtroom somewhere?
I'd wager they may well be, Luke. At any rate, we must make our own preparations. There's a brand new case that requires our attention, and that means a brand new set of puzzles to be solved, my boy.
Okay, so I guess that's supposed to lead into whatever Professor Layton game. Well, no, because maybe that's supposed to lead into Unbound Future because this takes place between what was Edgeworth.
Right. Has the cat got your tongue? Or are you still in a holiday kind of mood? Perhaps your mind is as clouded as the English sky.
Any hints, Maya?
Not really. If only the professor were here. I think at this point you've got to use that patented spell of yours, Nick.
Spell?
Objection.
Hello, Earth to Nick. Just when we think it's all over, you always use it to turn the tables.
Ah, got it. I just have to close my eyes and say the magic word. Luckily, I don't need a witch's scepter for this one.
Save the chit-chat for later, right? I've almost missed that utterly annoying spell of yours. Fine, let's hear it then.
Just take a deep breath and give it all you've got.
Well, here
Here
goes.
goes nothing.
Objection!
Wow. Okay, oh, that's cool. Oh, now I hate my layout. I hate my layout now. First off, that's not me. The credits are off-centered on the screen itself. That's not my layout that's doing that. But it sucks that you can't see them. It's scrolling from the bottom screen to the top screen, but it doesn't look that way because they're on top of each other. Anyway, okay, so where were we? Yeah, first off, Edgeworth cameo, automatic 10 out of 10. Game's perfect, flawless, no flaws, automatic 10 out of 10 game, because they put Edgeworth in there. Obviously, I'm not being serious with that, but, I mean, it's nice to see they made an Edgeworth cameo. His voice is awful, but it's nice to see they had an Edgeworth cameo. Anyway, okay, so, it seems like they dumped, because, like, that final gauntlet of puzzles in the tower where we were going up wasn't hard, even in the slightest. Like, those didn't, and they didn't even feel like puzzles that were trying to be hard, like for the end game that were just easy to me. No, they legitimately just didn't feel, they just weren't challenging. It was literally just move the tiles to match the symbol. That was all there was to it. So, that was annoying. The move system, I'll say this, was the move system for Professor Layton, much better. Much, much better. Being able to see the whole map at once was much less of a pain than having to just individually walk through every single part of town. That was a much, much welcome improvement. On the Ace Attorney side of things, on the other hand, it was the opposite. It wasn't exceedingly difficult by any stretch of the imagination. It was just, average Ace Attorney trial gameplay. It was, with the exception of the group testimony, which I gotta say, big fan of the group testimonies, not because they were fun to use, which they were, but because they just spit in the face of Apollo Justice even more. It's like, oh, Apollo Justice, aren't you so special with your ability to detect little quirks about the witnesses as you're talking to them? Aren't you so cool? Oh yeah? Well, guess what? Phoenix can do that without any of your perceived bullshit. So just yet another game to make Apollo Justice awful. Just make it even more relevant game. Go right ahead. Anyway, yeah, so, I will say, it was kind of obvious. Like, there was only, I think, a couple instances where multiple people react to something at once, or where you had to question them without them actually, like, automatically telling you, hey, I'm reacting to this. I wish there was more of that instead of it just, because basically, every time someone reacted, you had to just question them, so there wasn't much player input there. It was just kind of like, they reacted, so do this now. So I wish that could have been developed a bit more, but hey, it's Vincent Mason Ball of Justice, so that's a win in my book. Now, let's do characters next. I'm going to talk about characters next because I want to save the story for last because I have the most to say about the story. Luke and Layton have never been written better. Now, I don't mean individually, because individually, now, Layton and Luke can work together to operate invisible cranes, but I mean, as far as their chemistry is concerned, like the camaraderie that those two have, was at its best in this game. Easily, it was off the charts. They bounced off each other better than they ever had in the original trilogy. Phoenix and Maya were strong as ever. The epitome of their chemistry and their friendship was the two things. One, the scene in the tavern where Phoenix broke down, like, where that gut-wrenching music box melody played. And, like, that was just the most raw I think we've ever seen him. And then when they reunited in the underground rooms, those two scenes were just the epitome of their relationship over the course of how long they've known each other. I mean, to be fair, it's hard to mess up Phoenix and Maya's chemistry. Like, you gotta be really bad at your job to write their relationship and write their chemistry incorrectly. But still, it's nice to see they carried over here. Getting to see them bounce off each other during the trials, again, was awesome to watch. And out of the four, another great thing they did is they actually mixed and matched them a lot. So, you know, we had Phoenix, it wasn't just Phoenix and Maya and Luke and Layton doing their own thing. They had Phoenix interacting with Luke, they had Phoenix interacting with Layton, they had Maya going off to do little side quests with Luke, side quests with Layton. So we had different interactions between out of the main four, so that was a nice thing to see. The other characters, like I said, they nailed it with characters in this game. Espella, Eve, the storyteller, everyone we met over the course of this game just really had an impact. Like, you really fell for them. They absolutely nailed the characters in this game. Across the board, without a shadow of a doubt. That was the strongest element in terms of getting you to relate to them. However, it was not flawless because, as I'm sure you've noticed, there was quite a bit of condescension in this game between Luke and Layton and Phoenix. They're just, everybody all the time was like, oh wow, Luke and Layton are the best at everything, and Phoenix is like, I mean, you're here too, I guess. Like, the two most pertinent parts of that were the first trial, where Layton showed up and then just held Phoenix's hand the whole way through and he barely did anything, and in the final trial, when Layton showed up at the end and did everything for Phoenix. The best trial was the Golden Court, the one where Maya was the defendant. For as much as it sucks that Phoenix and Maya couldn't work together, because I really do enjoy seeing the two of them bounce off each other, like they did in the English Turnabout and the Fire Witch, well, kind of in the Fire Witch, and then in the Final Witch trial, before Layton showed up to take over the show. It was a small price to pay for salvation of not having to deal with Layton constantly condescending us the whole time. And it got better in the middle, but it picked right back up again during that final trial, especially at the end when Eve's like, I needed Layton here. Oh, and also Phoenix is here too, I guess. And that kind of leads into the story, because that kind of feels like this whole game in a nutshell. This doesn't feel like a crossover. It feels like a Professor Layton game that also happens to have Phoenix Wright in it for a little bit. But I guess before I get into that, on a broad scale, there were really only two main possibilities with how this game's story would be written. Either A, Shu Takumi would bring the Professor Layton writers down to planet Earth and ground the world a little bit, or B, the Professor Layton writers would infest everything and just go completely off the walls insane. Now, the important question is, which of the two was it? And the answer is both, because during the Ace Attorney sections, the story was excellent. It was classic mystery writing, really well-constructed clues, they all had logical through lines, they all connected to something. Clearly what happened is the Professor Layton writers were like, wait, we have to write a mystery? We don't know how to write things that make sense, and then just shove those sections into Shu Takumi's lap, and he's like, I mean, this is where I excel, so I'll happily do this, since clearly you don't know what you're doing. And all those sections, every single one of those mysteries was phenomenal, really interesting to decode and deduce the truth from. But the second you return to the investigation sections, the Professor Layton writers take over and things just fly completely off the rails. It's like the writers, like I said, are constantly fighting each other. It's like the whole point of this game was supposed to be to bring Professor Layton and Phoenix Wright together, and yet it just seems like they hate each other with a fiery passion. It's like, Professor Layton, the Professor Layton writers set up that there's a town filled with magic, and then it goes over to the Ace Attorney team. It's like, okay, cool, but you need to have rules with magic. So then they establish the Grand Grimoire and very defined, specific rules to go along with the magic spell so that you can still have stakes and a logical mystery. And then it goes back to Professor Layton writers and they're like, oh yeah? Well, not the Great Witch. She doesn't need rules to do magic. And then it goes back to Ace Attorney and it's like, okay, fine. But then her big moment where she uses magic is surrounded by witnesses. So she has to work within those boundaries. She can't just do everything willy-nilly. And it goes back to Professor Layton again. It's like, oh yeah? Well, guess what? It's all bullshit. None of the matter's real at all. Ha! Take that, Ace Attorney writers. Ha! We're so smart. And it's just like they're constantly going back and forth, fighting each other as to who had... It's like, they can't cooperate on anything apparently because they're constantly at each other's throats with the condescension of the characters and the story going back and forth between there's rules, there's no rules, da-da-da-da-da. And it's just, ugh. But then, all that pales in comparison to the grand reveal. Like, let me say this. The reveal of why the storyteller created the town in the first place and everything to do with his daughter and Eve, all that was masterful. That was all great. No complaints there. But the story itself and the world building just... Okay, first of all, it's the same stupid, the town's fake thing that was present in all 3 of the games in the Professor Layton trilogy. They really gotta try something new. But even if we ignore all those games, there's some issues that this game just doesn't seem to care about. So, magic isn't real. We've established that magic is not real in this universe, and yet somehow witches are still able to freely fly throughout the real world, and there's still a magical book that adjusts to what happens and foresees Luke, Layton, Phoenix, and Maya arriving in the town and teleports them to Labyrinthia somehow. Like, I don't know, friends. That kind of seems like magic to me. And, like, you cannot possibly maintain this illusion. Like I said before, how did you know where to aim the fire spell? How did you get the portals to work? How did you create a fake dragon with these non-magical spells? Why does no one remember getting knocked out? How could you possibly maintain this? It just... Then, of course, there's the whole facing off against Professor Layton thing, which was cool for the first 5 seconds, until you realize that Layton already figured everything out, because of course he did, and is just dicking around for no reason until he just waits for Phoenix to figure it out. And also, something else I thought of while that post-credit scene was playing, how did Carmen get out of Labyrinthia? Like, actually, how did he escape? How did he get out of there with the giant wall bordering the town, and with witches on his trail? Like, how did he get out of there? That is never explained. Also, the invisibility cloaks, that ain't how that works. Even if you can't see the specific color in question, that does not suddenly mean that you can see through said color. That's not how science works. Like I said, if I hypnotize you and I say the color blue does not exist, you don't suddenly gain X-ray vision whenever you stare at something that's blue. If I hand you a Sonic the Hedgehog toy or whatever, you don't suddenly gain X-ray vision and gain the ability to see through the Sonic the Hedgehog toy. No, you just can't see the color blue. That's not how this works. But okay, fine. Let's assume that's true. These things would still cast shadows. They would still make noise. Like, when the people put on the cloaks, they would still breathe. Their footprints would make noise. And the bell tower, again, wooden bell tower, more susceptible to lightning than the metallic machinery that was higher up in elevation than the tower itself. Rain and snow just falls right through the invisible objects, doesn't stick to it at all. No one bumps into anything, no one hears anything. And also, why didn't they not just destroy the goddamn bell instead of hiding it underground? Also, why did they just abandoned Barnum's character development? They had a really good thing going with his character, and then they just threw him in the dungeon for the rest of the game and forgot about him until he needed to be a boat until he needed to be a boat driver for the last cutscene of the game, which is just beyond confusing. This was not the best way to go out, I'll be honest. I mean, I'll say this. The game wasn't bad. This wasn't like some Apollo Justice levels of awfulness. This was still a good ride. This was still a good game. It just, like, the courtroom segments are what saved this game. The courtroom segments, the chemistry between the main cast and the new characters are what saved this game from being atrocious. But everything about the world building and the story just falls apart at the seams. More so than, well... I was going to say more so than any other previous Professor Layton game, but then I just remember everything about Underground Future and the Underground City, and it's close. It's a tight race, I gotta say. It's just, like, it was a blast to see Phoenix and Maya back in action. And those sections, the courtroom sections, being able to work together to save the day, interacting with all 4 of the main characters and seeing how they intermix with each other, the backstory of the new characters, all that was really solid stuff. And that was what saved this game from being awful, because if it weren't for those things, the world building and the story would just... Oh god, there were so many problems with that. But there you go. That is the end of my Ace Attorney adventures. Yeah, and I lost some credibility there because the stupid... I highlighted her neck, but it was still like, oh, actually, you were like 1 millimeter to... You were 1 pixel off of where you needed to be, so, get screwed and all that. So, you know, that's great. Well done, you just cleared the game. You may now make a you may now make a special game clear save data file. When you load data from this file, you will be given a choice of 2 starting locations. The first is within the underground ruins. From there, you'll be able to access the town and wander around freely, searching for hidden coins and unsolved puzzles. Second choice is the climax of the epilogue. This is ideal for those who would like to experience the game's finale one more time. You'll be able to restart with maximum credibility, so even if you run short this time around, you will still have a chance to pick up those vital pick routes that you missed. Save your completed game? Absolutely. Game cleared. Ooh, the title screen changed. That's cool. That's awesome. I really like it when this happens. Like, in Portal 2, how the title screen changes as you go throughout the game to represent where you are in the story. I really like it when games do that. Anyway, let's hear this epic music swell one last time before I get my final thoughts. This game was really something, I gotta be honest. Like, to be clear, like I said, it wasn't anything spectacular. It wasn't on par with Trials and Tribulations. It wasn't on par with Spirit of Justice or any of the top tier Phoenix Wright games, but it certainly wasn't bottom tier. It was a solid ride. It was a solid ride, and I'll say this easily: maybe it's tied with Diabolical Box. It's either slightly better than or tied with Diabolical Box in terms of best Professor Layton game. But yeah, that was still a solid ride. It wasn't nearly as egregious as the main Professor Layton games, but it wasn't quite as good as the main Phoenix Wright games. It's the solid middle of the road between both of their respective franchises. And that's it. The end of my Ace Attorney adventures. I'm still holding out because as of right now, it took me a full year to do it, but I played through the original trilogy, both Investigations games, the sequel trilogy, and the Professor Layton crossover, as well as all 3 original Professor Layton games. So now, I can finally say that I have played through every single Ace Attorney game available on my channel, except for the Great Ace Attorney, and I'm holding out for that one because, it looped back to the credits, okay, it looped back to the opening credits, okay, great. Anyway, yeah, so, I'm still holding out for the Great Ace Attorney because there was a leak that Capcom might be working on localizing the Great Ace Attorney games. I'm not gonna believe it until I see it. I know too well to hype myself up for something only to have it be revealed at the end that actually it was never happening in the first place. So, I will be waiting until Capcom officially announces that they're gonna be localizing those games, because if I'm not gonna take it. I'm gonna take it with a grain of salt until Capcom makes an official announcement. But I'm holding out hope that they are gonna announce that it's a real thing, and that if we get really lucky, then we might even get an Ace Attorney 7 next year. But only time will tell on both of those. For now, though, that'll be it for this year. We're closing the book on this LP. We're closing the book on this LP. My journey with Phoenix Wright and all his friends, and the 2020 season of my YouTube channel. I owe a lot to the Ace Attorney series. Over the past year, I played through every single game that I possibly can across the Ace Attorney series, and the way I discovered this series in the first place, believe it or not, was through the Random Encounters musical, of all things. I watched that musical and I'm like, hey, this is kind of fun, but I couldn't play the games because I didn't have a DS or a 3DS, so I was like, oh well, that sucks. But then they announced that it was going to be coming to the Switch, and like, ooh, I can play these games now, awesome. So, I finally decided to take the dive and make an LP. Figured, why not, and man, I could not be happier with my decision to start playing these games, because for one, they're just phenomenal. Just outstanding video game franchise. The original trilogy is in my top 5 games of all time. That arc, the story arc from the first game to the third game, is just freaking out of this world in terms of how well it's all built up. It's really something. And then I'm not gonna go through a summary of all the Ace Attorney games. You can watch my other LPs if you want to know my summary, my thoughts on all those games, because there's a lot to go through. But basically, I've had a blast playing through all these games. They've, with the exception of Apollo Justice Ace Attorney, they've all been a blast to play through, at least to some degree. And obviously, beyond just my personal enjoyment of the games, Ace Attorney's been very big for my channel this year. I've been making videos for 6 years, well, almost 7 years. By the time I started the series, by the time I started my first Ace Attorney Let's Play, I'd been making videos for almost 6 years. And I had an audience, but it was never an audience that, like, actively commented or was actively looking forward to the next video. It was just, you know, people would casually watch with very low amounts of views. But then I played Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, and my channel really took off. Like, I actually started to, my channel started to actually get real traction. People actually interacting in comment sections and looking forward to my upcoming uploads, and it was just, I thought it was amazing in late 2019 to see how much traction my channel was getting from the trilogy, but 2020 took it to a whole other level. From Ace Attorney Investigations to Apollo Justice to Dual Destinies to Spirit of Justice to Investigations 2 to the ultimate crossover of the century, my channel has grown more than I ever thought possible. And it is all thanks to you. Every single one of you who's watched the videos, commented your thoughts below, subscribed to the channel, everyone who's shown your support for this channel has helped me to make my dream of doing this a reality. I seriously cannot thank you enough for an absolutely phenomenal year. Even though 2020 has been a crappy year all around the world, as far as my channel is concerned, I have had a blast playing through so many virtual adventures this year, and I am so beyond grateful that I have an audience that's looking forward to the stuff that I make. It is so humbling, and it means the world to me that there's an audience that's actively looking forward to see what I upload every day. So I just want to say once again, thank you all for sticking with me on this crazy journey, because we have had, from Ace Attorney to Battle for Kingdom Bottom Rehydrated to Ghost Trick to Zero Escape to Pokemon of all things to Professor Layton, we've covered a lot of ground in 2020, and I am more grateful than you could ever possibly imagine that you all decided to come along for the ride and support my channel during this absolutely insane year. I hope I made you laugh, I hope I made you smile, but above all, I hope that I just managed to entertain you, even if it was just a little bit, even just a little bit of enjoyment out of your day for my videos, then I did my job. And if you did enjoy my videos this year, then be sure to strap in, because I'm not stopping anytime soon. So long as there's an audience that wants to see me play games, then I will do the best damn job I can to keep entertaining you all. So, thank you all so much for watching this Let's Play. Thank you all so much for joining me with my Ace Attorney adventures this year. Thank you all for supporting my channel this year. I wish you all a very, very happy new year, and I'll see you all in 2021 for another year of virtual adventures. Goodbye.